Hello, and welcome to today's episode on Grateful Leadership, the road to 1 billion happier people with Steve Foran. I am delighted to have Steve Foran on today's episode as our guest and expert on gratitude at life and in work. So Steve started out as an electrical engineer and did a part of his career in that field. And then he had a career pivot where he really had a purpose. He found his purpose when he was doing his MBA, and he was doing research on the relationship between philanthropic giving and gratitude. He decided thereafter, after winning the gold medal for highest academic standing for his research, that he would take it into practice, and he would help many people and organizations develop habits around gratefulness. And he's done that for almost 15 years, working around the world. So his company is called Gratitude at Work, and he wrote a book called Surviving to Thriving, The 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership, which I had the pleasure of reading cover to cover and would highly recommend. Steve and I will discuss gratitude and how it relates to happiness, wellness, and success in work and in life.
Laura, it's my honor. Thanks so much. Look forward to our conversation.
Me too. So my first question, Steve, is tell me about the career pivot that you had in your life and what led you to become a believer in grateful leadership.
Good. So this is like, we're going to go 20 years back or so, right? And I was looking for something to do something different, and I didn't know what it was going to be. And I had this aha moment. I had this realization that my life was handed to me on a silver platter. And the thing is, the reason that was kind of significant to me is because I had been in the belief that I had done it all myself. And regardless what you think of my success, but I kind of thought it was all me. And I have this realization, it was as if my life was just handed to me like a gift on a silver platter. And Laura, that's what brought gratitude into my head, into my heart. And yes, engineers do have hearts. They are, well, I know you're married to one. They're dark charcoal gray, but we do have hearts. Yeah. And at the time, I just had this overwhelming sense of gratitude. And it was, when you get a compelling idea, you just can't seem to let go of it. And so I was in grad school, needed to research something. So I said, I'm going to research this idea of gratitude, and that's what kind of got the ball rolling on it.
Wow. And I must say, what a great story your pivot was in the book. You went into a bit more detail on that, and good for you to really follow your purpose and passion and contribute to the research in this area of gratitude. And I love your accent, by the way. It reminds me of some dear friends we have in Halifax and the little words they say with the little Maritimes accent. So we miss the Maritimers, going there and visiting you guys.
Yeah, it's good. I know it's either about, or process. I don't know what we say, but thank you very much for that. Hope you enjoy it.
Absolutely. Can you share a bit about the research that you've conducted about gratitude, Stephen? What were the main learnings from that research, just in a nutshell?
Yeah, that the root of generosity, the core motivation why people give their time, their money, why they serve others, is gratitude, being grateful for everything they've received. And that is right across income spectrum. So this is a people thing. So gratitude is at the heart of generosity, was the findings from my work.
Excellent. So the more that we can build gratitude in people today, the better place the world will be, right? Because we all need more generosity, don't we?
Yeah. And, generosity can be many different ways, right? Like think of it, spending time with somebody, right? You're listening to someone, having a conversation, treating someone for lunch, whatever the case is. But just, it really is about, to me, helping humans connect better. And so this whole idea, to me, that's where this idea of generosity comes from.
And I remember near the tail end of your book about talking to the person in the grocery store. So all masked up. And how is your day going, right? So my eyes can express a lot. Even though you can't see my smile, my eyes can express a lot. And I think what you said is that goes a long way. You never know how you're cheering up that person or making a difference in their lives.
You don't. I just started this practice of whenever I have an interaction with anybody, like especially someone who is I'm being served by, right? So it could be at a grocery store, could be on a phone, and I just, you do the, hey, how you doing? That whatever. And then I just like, question, how's your day going? And just really try to get them to stop and do it in a way that really intentional with it. My kids, they'll look at me and just kind of go, they give you that, but Dad's doing his thing. It's just a way to it takes a transaction, something that is very transactional, like going to the grocery store, and to something that could be more transformational. Just this simple, you connect with a human being in a different way when you do. At least I do when I do that.
Good point. And I was talking to a dear friend in the hospitality industry who's on a layoff right now, like a lot of hotels are. And he said, what would make the biggest difference in the world is if management would just say at the beginning of one of our monthly calls, how is everyone doing? We appreciate you and we hope you're doing well. And they don't. Or just check in one-on-one and appreciate the person for all they have done and how they're missed. And a lot of them aren't doing it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, you know how important it is as humans, for us to know that we feel socially valued, especially by our boss, right? That sense of they care about me, regardless of whether I'm being productive, that all those things, they're important, but separate. I need to know that someone cares about me, and it's critical.
Absolutely. And it's easy to do, right? It's the remembering that is the challenge, but you just got to put reminders. You just got to develop habits, right?
It is. And the whole habits thing, you want it to be genuine, not just rote, you know what I mean? Because even my little exercise that I do, it can very easily become rote if I'm not careful with it. So you really want to be genuine. One time I almost had a woman just break down in tears because she wasn't having a good day and she was just trying to hold it all together. So just that pause, how you doing? And that was enough for her. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she's working at a cash register. Anyhow, wow. She brought herself back together, and because people are having a hard time. People are, and today more than ever.
Oh yeah, and even when I see the cleaner in our office building, because a counseling center runs out of my office as well, and so we still go in there. And even the cleaning stuff, I really feel for them because they're all masked up and they're having to clean the bathrooms multiple times a day. So I'm always trying to say hi, and I'm doing so even more after reading your book because it's lonely, right? It's lonely and it's sad and it's a hard time. And we can bring joy. So speaking of bringing joy, the Surviving to Thriving, the 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership. What led you to write it, and how can people get their hands on it?
Thanks. 15 years ago, when I started my company, I started doing training, speaking. I got involved with other professional speakers, and my marketing, I hired someone to do some marketing for me, build my website, and all the advice I was getting, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And that started in 2006. And maybe in 2007 or 2008, they said, you just got to write a book. You got to be an authority on your subject. So it doesn't matter how big it is. So I wrote my first book called Myth Number 2. It's about 30 pages long, and it's harder to write a 30-page book, I think. But according to my kids, they say, Dad, that was not a book. That's a booklet. So anyhow, this whole idea of a book is still in me, and I had it for a goal for a number of years, Laura. And a couple months into the year, I wasn't stuck on my goals. I'd make sure that, okay, is this time to do it? And I'd for probably 5 or 6 years. No, I'm not doing the book. This isn't the year. Anyhow, in 2018, it was on the list. And in April of 2018, I decided, yep, this is the year it's going to get done. And so wrote it in 2018. It came out about a year late, just a little less than a year later in early 2019. And it was really to take, up to that point, probably 12 years, 13 years of the work that I had done, and the research that other social scientists have done, and to bring that together in a way that, that I made sense of it. And it really helped me clarify even more what I was doing and create some additional ideas about how people can use gratitude to, spend more time thriving. That's the sort of the notion in the book, is how we can live life like a playground and do that more often than less often.
That is just so well put. So how can people get their hands on it?
Oh, yeah. You can either get it from, I don't know if you've ever heard of Amazon.
No, I haven't. Isn't that a rainforest? Or?
If anyone's heard of Amazon, you can get it there. You can also get it through my website at gratitudeatwork.ca. And we've got a store there. If you buy it on the website, you use the discount code FRIEND, all capitals, and you'll save 20%, and we'll send you a signed copy of it as well, too.
That's what I got. Okay, that's what we did. So it was nice to get that signed copy.
Yeah.
So my next question is, you talk about a spectrum of surviving at the bottom level of the spectrum where we don't want to be. I mean, we've all been there at one time or another. I know I have for sure. But surviving all the way to thriving, which is the ultimate goal. And there's 4 levels. And my question for you is, maybe just, can you explain the levels just briefly? And how do you think the pandemic has impacted leaders today along that continuum, for the better or the worse?
Okay, fantastic. Can I share a PowerPoint slide with anyone who's watching will be able to see it? So here's my PowerPoint slide.
Okay.
So if you're only listening, I've got a piece of cardboard with some markers on it. This is my COVID PowerPoint now, Laura. I've been using this for over a year. I'll show you what the back looks like in a second, but this is the hierarchy of leadership, and it's really a hierarchy of mindsets. And I call it a hierarchy of leadership because really leadership is about influence. And the thing that has the greatest impact on influence, I believe, is our mindset. And so these hierarchy, it goes from surviving to thriving. So very briefly, surviving at the bottom, life is a battleground. Up to striving, life is overwhelming. It's overwhelming hard work. Arriving is where life is a good place. And thriving, that's like our 6-year-old grandson, Max, life is a playground. And the significance of this is I've got a red line here in the middle, and I kind of differentiate and say, this is the place where, I'm not a psychologist, but this place below here is when you and I, when we're striving or surviving, we're in a negative emotional state, or you experience negative affect. You have this primarily negative feeling. Above it, you're in a positive emotional state, experience positive affect. And the significance of this is that when we're down here in this negative emotional state, and Laura, you know it better than me, but you effectively turn off that executive function in your brain, the part of your brain that you need the most to be able to make decisions, to apply critical thinking, to be creative, to be innovative. When we have all these challenges, right, like we do today, this is when we need to be able to tap into the higher order part of our brain that enables us to do that. And being in that positive state helps us do it. And, the numbers I've seen in terms of stress levels and anxiety, I've seen them low as 47. I've seen them as high as 70% in surveying populations where people are responding saying, I'm experiencing levels of stress and anxiety higher than I ever have in my entire life. This is over this past year. So somewhere 47 to 70%. So think of half to 3/4 of the people that we know are experiencing these levels of stress because of uncertainty, this mixture of work at home, away from home, and like not working, uncertainty with aging parents, friends, relatives, whatever the case is, kids in the home while having to do schooling. And it's like, hey, you can't do, I'm on this, or we're all on, using BAM. Like, stress levels really have been at a higher level over this past year. And I'm sure you're seeing it in your practice, in your professional practice. And so does that answer your question?
It does. So what I'm hearing then is you've seen leaders moving down that continuum is what I'm hearing. More so than moving up it. But have you also seen the reverse happening in certain cases? And what leads to those cases? Because we need more of those scenarios.
Right. So, whenever I present this, I'll just say, okay, let's do a quick self-assessment. Look at yourself over the last 30 days. Using that basic description that I've given you, that I just shared with you, where would you put yourself? And so over this last year, more people are putting themselves down below.
Darn.
And we're seeing more. I see people right across the spectrum. And the thing is, on any given day, Laura, you or I, just because I showed that chart and that's my hierarchy, I don't spend all my time thriving. I'm a human being too, right? So we move through there sometimes without even thinking of it. But the thing is, if we get down there, how do we get ourselves back up? All right. So that's this idea. And so you do exercise with a group of people, just invite them to experience gratitude, get them to, step back, reflect on what are you grateful for, and, do an exercise, have people do some sharing. And all of a sudden you ask people, how are you feeling right now? And they start using words like inspired, empowered, grateful, happy, joy, like hopeful, so these things, we can move that, and it doesn't make, all the challenges and the crap associated with the pandemic disappear, but it puts us in a better position, right? Puts you in a better position to be able to deal with it, to cope. Okay, I've got great family resources. I can do this and this, as opposed to worry, fear, feel paralyzed, because those are the feelings that people talk about. And sometimes it takes time too, right? Because depending on what's going on in someone's life, maybe in your life or someone watching or listening, you can have a lot of stuff going on. And it can be, I'm not here saying, oh yeah, you should be grateful and it's going to make everything, it can be really difficult. It's harder now than it ever has been to be able to experience this, but it's still something that each of us can tap into.
Well put, really well put. And I want to ask about, you talk about grateful leadership, positivity. During the pandemic or at any time, have you had any backlash to this concept about being maybe Pollyanna or pie in the sky? And how do you navigate when people come at you with that?
Yeah, it's one of those things that even before the pandemic, if you're going into an organization, like just imagine if you're going in to do some, training on project management or using software that you use. People are going, oh yeah, that's great. I'm all game for that. It'll help me do my job better. Imagine your boss comes and says, we're going to get you to do this training on gratitude. What's wrong with me? Right? That can be a response, right? So even before COVID, that can happen. So positioning, this is the key, Laura, right? How we position something, especially today. I was doing some work 2 weeks ago with a long-term care facility. We actually were face-to-face for this training we did as well too, which was the first time in the last year I did a whole group face-to-face like that. And really just trying to not tell anyone that you should be grateful, is just to be able to recognize and experience it on their own. I know in the healthcare world in particular, the whole compassion, fatigue, and burnout because of just this constant always need to be there. Gratitude, I would, if someone can't be grateful, I'm okay with that. I would encourage them to just say, where can you be grateful? Start there. Start wherever you can. Don't force it, but just start where you can, and then just build it. Because when we can see the good around us, it enables us to broaden and build, right? Barbara Friedman, she talks about this idea of broaden and build. When we're in this, in this positive mental space, we can, we're more likely to tap into approach behaviors where we'll think of alternatives, think of new ideas, creative ways to, and gratitude can help get you or us in that place where we're able to tap into that.
And I want to say you did a great job describing that in your book. And I was working with a team going through some challenges this week. And they were in the U.S. and they were located in different states. And anyway, they came together and I was going to do a once around, tell us how long you've been in the role, your name, one word to describe this team. And then I said, who cares how long they've been in the role? Let's ask what they're grateful for. So I threw it in and it actually worked really, really well. I think they loved it. So I'm going to adopt that regularly. Thanks to you, Steve.
That's fantastic. That is a very simple but powerful technique that anyone can implement in their workplace today. And you can do that whether you're meeting face-to-face or you're on Teams or Zoom or WebEx or however you meet as a team virtually. So,
exactly. So my last question is, can you explain the relationship between your experience as an engineer and how you've applied that to building successful, thriving cultures in organizations? So any linkages between your engineering career and your organizational consulting career?
I think probably there's two pieces to it. One is my lived experience, not necessarily as just as someone who's worked in organizations and working in an organization where, or having a job or working for someone and feeling like you just hit up the ground and you're ready to go. And also having jobs where you had the Sunday night feeling. And anyone who's had the Sunday night feeling, exactly what I'm talking about, right? And so it was really just that, and thinking about and reflecting on my experience in both of those, and what were the things that drew me in, and what were the things that pushed me away. So that was just that lived experience. So there's really no science to any of that, right? It's just that experience, my lived experience. The other piece of being an engineer is that we are, we like finding solutions and practical, and we have models and frameworks. And what enabled me to do was to take a body of research that was out there and build from it, but not just, I say it's a very science-based program that we used. Everything is not evidence-based that I do. It comes from practice. It comes from, and I thought that was a downside at first, but then I realized that's a lot of the reason why people were hiring me, because of the things that I was doing. That really, where does innovation live? It doesn't live on evidence-based. It lives as you're trying and experimenting and testing things out into the future. So as an engineer, I was, and I had clients that were willing to work with me. And in some ways you could say, take those risks and say, okay, what works here and what doesn't work? And most of the stuff that we try and use and continue to use is stuff that has been working when we try it. So, so really that lived experience that I had as someone who worked in organizations. And then secondly, the engineering framework, I don't know if you noticed in the book, I have some models. Those really, I think, are just come from my engineering type mindset and approach to problem solving.
Wonderful. So you have covered some really important points about how gratitude in our daily lives, in workplaces, as leaders, is so critical today, more than ever. And what I've heard again and again, and I've read in your book, is it's fairly it's not easy, but these habits can be integrated easily if you put your mind to it. I mean, I've integrated some of your habits already. The 3 things you're grateful for, journal them once a day, doesn't take long, and is already really impactful to me because it's forcing me in a good way to explore different areas of my life that I'm grateful for. So
That's
thank
fantastic.
you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing that, right? And just how you framed it at the end, right? 3 things you're grateful for, that that it just causes you to explore what those things might be, right? And so curiosity, wonderful.
So absolutely recommend your book. And this is the first part of a 2-part podcast with Steve Foran. And I'm really excited to bring you back in 2 weeks, where we'll discuss the intersection of your work and life and some of your tips around work-life wellness and how gratitude can actually help us as human beings be well and thrive and manage stress. So we'll get into some more tips and recommendations and things in that part too. But for the time being, if you want to get your hands on Steve's book, again, it will be in the show notes. That's where you'll find it. And we will be more than glad to have you on again when we continue this conversation. So thank you very much for your time today, Steve.
Thanks. You're welcome. And make sure you come back in 2 weeks, because the tips are really important for you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Where Work Meets Life. I'm passionate about sharing insights from experts around the world on topics at the intersection of where work meets life. If you found this podcast useful, please share with others who may benefit and engage with us on social media. For more articles, information, and tips, sign up for my monthly newsletter at my website, drlaura.live. This podcast summary contains links to the psychology practice I've founded, Work Evolution, Canada Career Counseling, and Synthesis Psychology, as well as my current employer, Humans, a nationwide organizational psychology firm focusing on culture and performance. Stay well.